So I am Councillor Rick Firman, the current Mayor of Temora Shire, and this film is essentially made to have our former mayors and of course the current one to reflect some of their achievements together with their fellow councillors and their staff over their respective career and their journey within local government. So we think it's very important to be able to capture that on film so future generations don't forget about where we've been.
It's the fine tradition that has been afforded this shire and this town, starting with Ian back in 1955, and all the way through all the other representatives who've actually served in that very auspicious role of mayor. And becoming a mayor is not easy. Getting onto local government is not easy. Sometimes people say it's actually harder to get out of local government than it is to get into local government, but it certainly is. It's certainly the grassroots representation of the three levels of government, and certainly, you know, we sit in the Federal House of Representatives and we banter back and forward, we argue back and forward. It happens in the Bear Pit in Macquarie Street, but here it's really local representation at the grassroots level that people really look to for all things, for whether it's their pothole, whether it's these days childcare, whether it's unionisation, whether it's better roads. In times of crisis, local government certainly serves as perhaps best of all the three tiers of government. And you people are right there at the forefront. You people are right there at the coalface, representing those local constituents, representing those ratepayers, and doing it to the best of your ability. And certainly the mayors are representing those people who are the honoured representatives of their local shires. And whether it's at Temora, Tumbarumba, Tumut, or any one of the 13 local government areas within the Riverina electorate, or indeed the hundreds of local government areas right across this wonderful land, you do a fine job, whether you are a mayor or whether you are the newest councillor on board. You do a wonderful job for yourselves, for your family, most of all for your communities, who couldn't quite frankly operate if you weren't doing that diligent work, that meticulous work, and that work that doesn't actually just cover the boundaries of 9 to 5. I know how often, even tonight, you're out here representing your communities, but quite often things happen and they don't always happen in the 9 to 5 time frame, and you're always out there doing your utmost to serve the people who actually put their faith in you, and well done to you, more power to you, and certainly I hope that the Temora Shire operates as its own entity for many, many years to come. Gary, I wish you all the very best with your future financial deliberations. I hear that you're a very financially strong council, and that's a great effort to you and your staff. And certainly councillors realise that they can't operate without good staff, and certainly Temora Shire is very blessed to have Gary Revell and all the other staff members who also go above and beyond the call of duty to make sure that their communities are being well served. So well done to the staff, well done to Rick and his team as far as the council representatives are concerned, and may Temora Shire succeed and prosper well into the years ahead. Thank you very much. Macauley is the Shire retiring tonight. Now, if I could just call on one of our first term councillors, actually, Councillor Dennis Slater, to say grace.
After such measured eloquence, I hope that my words can get through to the Lord. Lord, as we come together to eat together in such cheerful company, we thank you for the food and the friendship in which we're about to participate. We pray for the well-being of all those in this room. We pray for those who have prepared the food and those who have served it. And as we eat and as we enjoy friendship, we think of those who don't have either food or friends tonight, and we ask that you will help us to make their life a little better in our daily lives. We make this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. And the meal, main course should be served soon. I was wondering why. Upon arrival, he pulled out some Google Map images of forests and surrounding areas, and to explain to me that the mothership had indeed was located there, and he had proof. And he was seeking, he believed that the aliens had landed, and they were at Inglebark. He was seeking counsel and my assistance in bringing the matter to the attention of the Defence Minister. He'd written to him, but he hadn't responded, and I really don't know why, but they do walk among us. But an experience I had, and I do want to relate this to you because it relates to Ted Leary, and from a young bloke, I received a call from a lady in Temora Shire who rang up and said, look, they haven't collected my garbage bin. And I said, well, you must have had it out or something. You know. And she said, no, it was out and no one collected it. So I rang the garbos and said, look, what's the go? You know, the lady said she had it out, and they said, well, we tried to do it, but the lift wouldn't lift it, it was just too heavy. So I let Ted know that I was going to go around and see this lady, and Ted's answer was, well, the synthesised version of it was, you're mad, she's a lunatic. And but anyway, being ideological, I was young, and I thought, you know, this is the way I pressed on. And I went around and asked her to explain to what the situation was, that the bin was too heavy and they couldn't lift it. She said, well, that's absolute rubbish, you know. And I said, well, look, can we have a look at what's in your bin, you know? And when we had a look, basically she filled a 240-litre garbage bin with dirt and potatoes. She'd been in a garden and she lifted all these potatoes. And I said, look, the bin, it just won't lift that. It's too heavy. It'll weigh, you know, 400 kilos or something. It's a massive thing. And so she started, at that stage, she went absolutely ballistic and started throwing potatoes from one end of Valera Street to the other. Everyone in sight was copying the potatoes. It was all over the footpath, all over the road, the whole thing. And at that time, it was getting close to lunchtime, Ted was on his way home for lunch. And he nearly ran off the road as he saw this, and he had this laugh on his face, and he was absolutely beside himself. So I learned from that experience, and I learned that you really cannot be experienced. And I should have taken his note of what he said at the time. But experience is one thing we do have here tonight. And what I want to do is call each of the mayors or presidents, the ex-mayors and presidents up and say a few words. I'm going to do it roughly in chronological order. I say roughly because they sort of cross over a little bit. But if they can stay up here, there's some chairs up here, and I know the mayor wants to do a presentation later to them. Now, being politicians, we do need to ensure that the time, we're not here until this time tomorrow night. So look, I bought some stuff. Look at this, a gavel. It's a power thing. I'm usually on the other side of this, and I've actually got control of it tonight. So that's going to be really good. So the first one I want to introduce is Ian Murphy. Now, Murph, he came back from Canberra for the occasion, and we thank you for that. And I'll just read Ian Murphy. Commitment to Narraburra, to the council. Ian was president of Narraburra Shire from 1956 to 63, and then from 76 to 78. And he was also president of Temora Shire Council from 1990 to 1991. So, Ian, if I could invite you up just to say a few words.
Unaccustomed as I am, I'm calling this the last hurrah. Now, I wish to thank the council and the staff and the people who have been wonderful over the wonderful 17 years. I've lost my place, how about that? Wait a moment, I'll finish the last. Now, better. I must thank the people in the Shire for a wonderful 37 years of life given to me as a councillor. How lucky was I that at the age of 24 that I was actually a ratepayer of the Narraburra Shire. Now, to be nominated as a candidate, you had to be a ratepayer. And if I hadn't have been paying the rates on a little 240 acre block, my local government career would never have started. How lucky I was to be elected to the Narraburra Shire on the first attempt, and some 4 years later to become president at the age of 28. There is some doubt of what this 28 years of being a Shire president did me, because at the time when I was given that honour, I was told that I was the youngest Shire president in the state of New South Wales. But I believe at that particular time I was also the youngest president in Australia. As president, my main endeavour was to open council to the public, because to inform you, the Narraburra Shire that I was elected in first used to start their meeting at 9:30 in the morning. At 5:30 in the afternoon, they'd ring the independent, "You can come down to the meeting now, we're going into correspondence." So you'd spend from 9:30 to 5:30 on council business with no one, no press, no publicity, and all the insinuations that used to happen of what we did didn't really enhance our position. It was wonderful to be president of the Narraburra Shire, and the Temora Municipal Council was when the Temora Municipal Council was amalgamated with the Temora Shire Council in 1981. We went on to win the Blewett Memorial Award for the Association for the Best Council in New South Wales, and again my date might be wrong, we're not too sure whether it was 1984 or 1983. I was also elected to the Narraburra County Council at the same time as my election into the Narraburra Shire. And I served on that council for 37 years, 17 years as deputy, but never ever as president. During my time in the Narraburra Shire, the Temora Municipal Council had a series of short-term mayors. And I've mentioned this to Ian McCrae tonight. That was the time when progress did really take place in Temora. And coming back to Temora and seeing Temora as it is today, I congratulate all those who contributed to Temora, because Temora looks and feels a good town. My main endeavour was, when I became president of the Narraburra Shire, was to open the meetings, as I said, when you had a meeting that was closed till 5:30, your press was never real good. And I also wanted to start blacktop, because in those days we only had 3 mile of blacktop, and that was out on the Wagga Road. It was narrow, and it was the only blacktop in the Shire. At the time of my elevation into the council, Junee Shire had nearly completed all their main road system with bitumen. That was my aim, to get that started. There was a little bit of skullduggery and a little bit of communication different areas to get that. The first allocation of blacktop was for 5 miles south of Temora and 5 miles north of Temora. 10 mile of bitumen in those days was an awful lot, and it would be a big lot today. Now, I must apologise, my wife's not with me. Being Shire President back in my day, there was no mobile phone, there was no nothing. If the Shire wanted to contact me, they'd have to ring my wife. My wife would have no idea where I'd be on the 3 farms that I run, and she would have to hop in the car and try and find me. Quite often she didn't find me. And that was when I was caught, I had to own up. Present now tonight with the Alderman and councillors that are here, I wish to thank the community for giving me nearly 40 years of life experience in local government. The light was not always bright, nor progress easy, but I believe we prospered and progressed all well over the years. I feel truly blessed for the positions I held.
Thanks, Ian. Next one up in chronological order is Ted Macauley. Ted was mayor of, we worked out earlier, mayor of the, oh yeah, you've got to stay up here, of Temora Municipal Council from 71 to 73. We worked out 40 years ago. So, and the photo up there, you haven't changed at all. You haven't changed at all in the photo. Terrific. Thanks, Ed.
Bit unprepared, but nevertheless we'll try. Actually, he's taken away a bit of my thunder saying he was 24 when he got on the council. Well, I thought we were going to say that a record, but I first got on the council. Three of us, Garney Crowd, Macauley, myself, our average ages, our total ages was less than 100. And nowhere of the other 6 million of the three of them come under about 180. I don't know whether you remember or not, but around about the 50s, late 50s, there was a story on the radio or TV, not much TV in those days, but the new kids on the street. I don't know if you know it or not, but that was us when we got on the council. The first night we walked into the meeting, you could see the looks on the faces of the other old blokes that were sitting there. Here comes the new kids of the street. They soon found out that we were new kids too, because every time we asked a question or made a suggestion of what we should do, we got the answer, you can't do that. And this went on for some time, until we woke up and we got a reply back. So when we asked the question, they said, you can't do that. We said, well, why can't we do it? And of course, the mayor and the town clerk were stuck for answers. And we thought this was a victory. So we're getting on better now than we ever did. And it went on for years. Our usual procedure was that every year it come around the mayoral election. Cyril Willingham would be there for the donkey's ages. Always mayor. With the usual thing, pass the vote around the table, everybody to nominate. If you no nominations, town clerk would say no, only one nomination for mayor, all of Willingham elected unopposed. So Garney, Trowers and I were 1967, I think it was the 1967 mayoral election coming up. And Garney and I happened to be in here with the club, having a few quiet beers. But that time we, give Cyril a bit of a shock. When we come up, we'll nominate one another for mayor. So we did this, but no attention to standing. So that night it happened, called for nominations. And William went round, collected all the papers, went back and sat down and said, 3 nominations for mayor. And Cyril moved out of his chair. Eventually regained himself and he said, stuttered, well, he said, we'll have to have a ballot. And of course, by this time, London County and all that county buzzed it up and very universally thanked whoever nominated us. We thanked them for their thought. We couldn't see our way clear of standing. But it bounced back on us because 3 or 4 months later, Cyril announced he wouldn't be standing for the council next election. We did it as a joke, but it paid dividends. I believe that Ian Williams retired in the same year. Keith Global took over from him. By this time, we had a much stronger council, and I think that was the turning point in what really boosted the Tory council. They had been, when we first come in, the first thing we wanted to do was build a town hall, but no, you can't borrow money, you can't do that. By 1965, we had enough of the council we had the majority, we said, right, we're going ahead and build the town hall. Well, look at it today. That's been 20 years talking about, and we did it for about 5 years. We enjoyed ourselves. I had a very enjoyable time. 18 years. I spent a lot of time on it. We had represented the council on the old housing commission committee. That was made up of members of the community, different organisations, and one representative of the council. Well, Cyril William was firstly, and he went off council and went to his place on the housing commission. I ended up 14 years and 12 years as the chairman of it. And actually, 1977, when I left the council, they decided they didn't want me anymore. Mainly because I was also on the traffic committee. I had been on the traffic committee for years. Every time the traffic committee met, they would say, we've got to do something about that Main Street. We've got to get rid of those light posts on the Main Street. We've got to get rid of the Central Park. Because I was the money that never pushed it to the council. And that, of course, cost me my place on the council in 1977. Because I was the scapegoat, I suppose, for the demolition of the Central Parking and the lights up the centre of the street. You can understand the local government, or not local government, but the government agency that run the RTA, they said, no, you just can't have this in the Main Street, we've got to get rid of it. If we don't, the council don't get rid of it, we will. So apart from that, I was going back to the Housing Commission. When I left the council in 77, the officer in charge came to Peter Munro. He asked if I would stay on. So even though I was on the council, he applied to the council to have me remain on the Housing Commission House, and I stayed there until 1982. The state government changed the rules, you had to re-nominate, so that's what I got off that. But I enjoyed my whole life, whole 18 years of it. Must admit that the first 5 years, or not the first 5 years, the first 3 years I was at council, very new. Charlie Last was deputy mayor, and I took over with him. I had 5 years as Clayton deputy mayor, because I only represented the council on one occasion, and that's 5 years. Cyril didn't believe that anybody else got it. My memory's mainly of it, and I support Ian and what he said about all the things that the council have done and all the men that have been on council that they've done. And I thank the council for the invitation here tonight. It's been a pleasure to join with a lot of the old folks of the days. We used to have a lot of fun. Even one of the, I mentioned his name, the town clerk went to sleep one night after a meeting because we all walked out and closed the door behind. Nobody had a key to get back in and let him out. He finished up, if you remember the old council chambers, there used to be a ladies' toilet leading onto the park. So we finished up down our way through the toilet, the window there, that was unlocked, so we had to climb through the window and let Pete out of the, let him wake him up and send him home. We had a lot of these things. I think Rick said to me early, what did you do after the council meeting? Well, I said, we mostly come down here to the bowling club and had a few beers. But that was never in Cyril Wellingham's time. Cyril said, you don't do that sort of things, you go straight home after a council meeting. He did chance a cup of tea one night. But I suppose, I should mention things like that for Cyril. He was a good old councillor, a good old man. And the trouble is, he held the council back for a lot of years because him and England were both in the same breed, thought they were spending their own money. And if you mention something about borrowing money in those days, no, you can't do that. So that held us back. That's why I said earlier that really, when we started to grow after 1968, me and both Cyril left the different councils altogether. The councils prior, we only looked at the town hall. decided that about 1949 or 50, I think it was, to put a penny on the rates to build a town hall. Well, you know how long that would have taken. Going to build a town hall in about another 55 years. Thank you, Gary, for the opposition to say a few words. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for attending.
Thanks very much, Ted. Well, our next mayor is actually one who's no stranger to the gavel, and he's spent his last few years. He achieved, I won't say notoriety, but fame for his stance against graffiti artists, I think, at one stage. So, McCrae, who was Mayor of Temora Municipal Council from 73 to 78, and it comes into a really interesting time of Temora local government history, because we had the amalgamations pending, and with all the things that go with amalgamations, the building of new buildings and all the rest of it. So it'll be interesting to hear from you. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Gary. I don't know whether it was local government training that caused me to hate graffiti artists with a passion, and unfortunately my colleagues on the various benches of the court don't share the same concern that I do, but I should say every time we get on a train or every time we see graffiti, people will tell you that I use a lot of expletives and say if they came before me I'd jail them again today. My speech tonight will be short, because unlike some of these old blokes around here, I always believed that a meeting was a good meeting, and when I became mayor, I tried to adopt that practice, sometimes with not a lot of success. But certainly, council was a great training ground for me for my latter career on the bench. It taught me how to handle objections, and taught me how to deal with some rogues who used to play the system pretty well. And I thought, rather than perhaps adopt a serious note tonight, some of these other fellows did, if I could start by saying, Murph, you might have been 27, but I was 23 when I became mayor, you see, so I deserved it. And it was probably through the good graces of your spinster aunt who campaigned for me, who got me there at that stage. So I suppose I have something to say thank you to for the Murphy clan for getting me to local government.
You know, I'm younger than you.
Gary talked about the potato throwing incident. I recall one of my first experiences on the bench. I had to deal with the Laird of Robinson, who had some fame with the pie shop there, and he appeared before me on some gun issue, and he took the view that it was all right to have weapons on his premises, and he came before me at Barrow, I think it was, and he argued that he'd succeeded from the Commonwealth, that really he didn't have any law to answer to. And the other day I was doing a state bail court at Parramatta, and I had a couple come before me who'd been charged with offensive conduct, and neither of them could quite understand what the situation was, because they had repeating apprehended domestic violence orders against them, and they'd been found in the cemetery on a tombstone at Parramatta about 3 o'clock in the morning, and someone walking past thought this fellow was assaulting a woman, and it turned out that they were having a sort of romantic mood, and they were both very put out that they were performing on the Sunday. So I think the local government training has sort of taught me how to expect those things. Council in 72, 73, when Peter and I came on, was a new experience for both of us. We had, I think, with Brian Hartwig, we sort of had high hopes, and the issue of the day was the caravan park, all things, and talking to the youngsters tonight, it became a fairly topical issue in the town, and I think that probably got the three of us onto council. But having got onto council, we thought we could, I suppose, play Mary Hill and sort of impose our will in terms of what we're doing. But we soon found out that the old hands around the council perhaps took different views, and for a period of time in the first year particularly, we labelled ourselves canvasback because most times we tried to move things and we were sort of flattened by the majority. One of the councillors who taught me a great deal was Heck Skidmore, and Heck, as you probably all remember, was a devout Labor member of the community, a terribly well-meaning fellow who had the community at heart. It used to stagger me at meetings. The topic would come up, Heck would take the opposing view, move a motion against the majority view, talk to it for half an hour or so. He'd sit there rubbing a thumb and fingers thinking, where's this all going? When the motion was put, Heck would invariably vote with the motion that you put for a start. He was a great master at trying to present both views. Temora has been blessed with this council, and quite frankly, I despair today, and I don't know whether it's because of the fact that I've been sitting on a bench trying to dispense justice for the last 25, 26 years. I see in our local situation in Camden, where politics are now playing a far too important role in terms of local government. I say that with great respect to our local government. Presently, council, and the beauty of Temora was that it was totally independent. We all had political meetings and views, and come election days, we'd all be out there handing out how to vote cards for various parties that we support. But come council meetings, there seemed to be a unanimous view to promote the town and the district to its full. And that was something which seems to have gone out the window. And coming back to my local council at the moment, there's been a takeover by a political party. The general manager's been sacked under circumstances which are not public, causing great consternation in terms of the efficacy of the local government. And it seems to me that there's sort of a steamrolling effect, and that it's more for the party politics than it is for the local government area. That's a shame. It seems to be on the increase, and all I can say is that it seems to me that in country councils particularly, there still is this attitude of altruism whereby the district and the towns are foremost to any view that might be taken. And all I can do is, to all of you who are still sitting on council, encourage that to the fullest. People like Spiers, I said I'd give him a bit of a serve tonight. He and Nigel, 37, and Murph on council for that long. Quite frankly, even if I was sitting here in my judicial role with a black cap on my head, I couldn't give you that for murder, so I don't know why, so anyway, Spiers, I've got you, mate, so thank you, Rick, for inviting us back tonight. It's very nice to catch up with a lot of people we haven't seen for a long time, and also with you, Gary.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, wow, this is reflections on life in local government. And to be able to do that in the presence of past leaders and present leaders of our community, I think is fantastic. For me, it's been a fantastic journey, and one that started with pretty humble beginnings. In 1977, I was elected to the Narraburra Shire Council as a councillor, and I understood that was for 3 years. The problem is I got very bad maths, I just can't count. But that was 77. In 79, I was elected by that council as the Deputy Shire President. Arthur Wallace was the Shire President of the day. And To me, it was a very steep learning curve, because honestly I'd known nothing or very little about local government up to that stage. So yeah, you learn, and you learn quickly. In fact, one of the first things I learnt was that sitting in the back of a council was a representative of the local paper. Alan Bent, that was him. And I didn't think much about it, but about the second meeting of the Narraburra Shire that I was on, a subject came up which had been coming up for the last 20 years apparently, and that was a discussion about a lake, the lake. And I listened to the debate and the discussions, and I frivolously said, well, it sounds like we've been flogging a dead horse. Why don't we talk about a lake that's close to Temora, not out round South Cambanning or somewhere there? That's where I learnt that sitting in the back of the room was the press, because the Independent bore the headlines in the next issue, Council flogging dead horse. This was in the days of paleface adios, so that had a double connotation there. And from then on I learnt the value of the press and the media to council and to your community. Very important lesson at my expense, but learnt well for lifetime. 1980 saw us go, not through our own volition, but placed into an amalgamation phase which seems to have dogged local government ever since. And we were what was technically known in the days as a donut situation, where we had the Temora Municipal Council and the Narraburra Shire Council. And we woke up one morning under the Act, we were married. We protested, but at the end of the day, honestly, if they'd have left us to our own devices, we would have come up with the same answer. Because at that stage we had a joint library service, the Shire had an engineer, the Municipal didn't. The Municipal had a health and building surveyor, the Shire didn't. So we shared responsibilities around our roles at a staff level. We had a joint industrial estate up where Bill Preston's got his place now. The airport was part of the Narraburra Shire, not part of the Municipal. So the development that was going on was joint anyhow. And as I said, if we were left to our own devices, we'd have been there married within the 5 to 10 year period. That wasn't our choice, but as is the way of so many things, you have to make the best out of it when it's dealt to you. And I think as a newly born council, as the Temora Shire Council, we did pretty well, because the next year we took out the AR Blewett Award for Excellence in Local Government in New South Wales. Not a bad effort, and very much to the credit of both councils who worked together, and the councillors that were elected working together to bring to fulfilment that which was thrown into our lap. Since then we have continued to grow, and I pay tribute to the Shire President of the day, which was Peter James, Pete, and to my mentor in local government, who was Ian Murphy. He was, to me, my rock as far as getting a foundation for what is local government and what does it mean to your community. Both of them shared in previous roles in local government as leaders of their respective communities. And so I found myself in the new council appointed as the Deputy Shire President, a position I held until Peter James stepped down in 1986. I think that's right, Pete, yeah, 1986. And we went, I found myself in the position of Shire President. And as leader, either as Shire President or Mayor, it's a role that I was able to put my heart and soul into for 21 years, in 3 different sections, but 21 years. So in that time, and in that period since 1977, there have been a lot of changes. The lake was one, but the lake was only one of a whole raft of community advances. The development out at the airport was certainly a magnificent development. Private enterprise involved there in the Aviation Museum, but also the community in terms of gliding, parachuting, don't mention that, but anyhow, jumping out of perfectly good planes, that's crazy, but anyhow, did that. And a whole raft of activities around aviation, which now means that the airport facility is self-sustaining or very close to. And that's an important aspect of any development that a small council puts on or takes on as a responsibility, to have it be able to be self-sustaining. Other achievements in that time, wow. Moving the library from where it was, where now the theatre is, down to what was the Northern Riverina County Council headquarters, and developing it into a fantastic facility. The theatre in itself was a tremendous achievement, because it was how do you use a space and not make it into something that is just so big that the community will not support it. And now, thanks to the volunteers and everyone working with it, it is progressing beautifully and fantastically. I even see some good movies there, which is fantastic. But behind it is the one thing that I would pay great tribute to in my term of leadership of council over those years, and involvement with council, is the value of our volunteers within our community. We could not survive without each and every one of them, each and every one of you as volunteers that are in the room. And it's so important, because as a small community, we don't have the resources to go around and have them fully funded. Volunteers step up to the mark, and I think as a result, we are a much richer community. So to all the volunteers out there, thanks for the effort you put in. For my part, as Mayor after the 1994 changes to the Local Government Act, through to today, and all the things that have happened in between, probably 2008 was significant to me, because I was awarded the Order of Australia Medal, and that to me was a great honour for me personally, but also I recognised it as recognition of a community working together. I couldn't be what I was and am without that sort of response from the community. So it's a great honour for me, but thank you to the community for doing it and being there. And at the end of the day, as councillors, my attitude is that we are there to serve our community, not our vested interests. We're there to serve you, the people that elect us to these positions. And to me, it's been a great privilege, it's a great pleasure. As a farmer out at Reefton, I was too remote to be part of a service organisation. Hello, local government became the service that I was prepared to commit a life to. And so now, looking back, I've done so and found it very rich and rewarding, sometimes very challenging. And at the same time, I think our community has grown, not because of me, but because as part of a team, we've been able to achieve so much. Perhaps the hottest issue of my life in local government was the building of a new office for the council. Boy, didn't that stir things up. But it's there. And Pete, you'd remember the turmoil that was around that in 1985, I suppose it was, because it was opened in 86. And so in reflection this evening, it's great to have an opportunity to look back. It's great to have a community that's empowered one to be able to look back with so many milestones along the way. And all I can say on behalf of myself and my family, and Helen there, she's borne every blow that I've had and every accolade too. It has been a team effort at a family level and also a community level. And I want to say to everybody, thank you for giving me that wonderful opportunity to serve a community.
I had the privilege of being the Mayor of the Temora Shire Council from the year 2000 to the year 2006. It was a very tough time for council in that period. From 2002 it was the drought had started, and as I said, a tough time for council, and it surprised me just over that period that how much the Temora Shire survived that tough times. We kept all our major banks in town, and while a lot of other industries and projects were finished. I remember not long after becoming mayor that the DAs come in for major development with BFB, with their Moore Park Piggery, and also their bunker grain storage on their Erie Park Road. One of the biggest things that happened while I was mayor was the Temora Aviation Museum setting up in Temora. They started in 1999 with their stage one, and in 2002 they built a new big hangar, display hangar, and really set it off with more displays. One of the biggest challenges that we faced as mayor at the time and the council was they wanted to build a new runway for the aerodrome to cater for the new aircraft for the Aviation Museum. And that was going to cost $3.6 million, and in those days it was a lot of money, but with input from both the Aviation Museum and the federal government, we were able to do it, and we built that new nearly 2 kilometre runway, and that was opened in 2004. Coupled with the Aviation Museum coming to Temora, council took the opportunity to develop an aviation estate. Now this is where we built houses at the front of the block, and at the back of the block you have a hangar where you can have a plane or a glider and have access to the taxiway and back to the runways. This has proved very popular over the years, and virtually seen our aviation estate develop into virtually a little suburb of Temora, and it's been a great thing that's really happened. It's one of these things that council's been looking for over the years, trying to provide something that's not rural based. And having an aviation industry has certainly helped our shire to survive. One of the things that happened during the drought was in 2003, our Lake Centenary dried up. And our council got very active, and with the support of locals, we got straight in and desilted the lake, and before the next rain came. Compare that to our neighbours at Wagga. They spent $60,000 doing a survey just to work out what they're going to do. So, but in the meantime, while they waited for the survey, the rains come and fill Lake Albert up again. But back in Temora, we did the desilting, and the job was done. Other things that happened while I was mayor was we set up a medical centre. We leased premises at a time. There was a shortage of doctors in Temora, so council had to get involved in trying to attract doctors, and so initially we leased premises in Victoria Street, and this led on to the new medical centre being built later on a few years ago. One of the biggest problems we faced at the period of time was the New South Wales government wanted to shut down our research station. The research station had a long history, and we didn't want to lose that research station, so I know I, as mayor at the time, chased the minister at the time all over the state, trying to get an audience with him to put our case so that we could, save our research station. And by the end of my mayoral time, we did get a commitment from the government to that we could transfer the research station to the Shire Council, and since then we've developed that research station into the Temora Agriculture Innovation Centre. So it was something that we had to fight for back in those early years. Another major improvement what happened while I was mayor was the upgrade of the 2 main streets in the Shire. and it happened in 2004, both in Temora and in Narraburra Park. It did have its arguments and difficulties, but looking back on now, both towns have really improved by the upgrades we did back in those years. Finally, probably the biggest highlight of my term as Mayor was in 2006, when we had the sitting Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable John Howard, came to Temora. And we invited him to come and officially open the new runway at the aerodrome. Now, John Howard, at that time, is the first sitting Prime Minister and the only one since that's ever come to the town of Temora, the Shire of Temora. So that was a big achievement, and I was very privileged to be along with David Lowy from the Aviation Museum, to be host to the Prime Minister on that day, and there was a terrific crowd at the aerodrome. People come from everywhere. We had big wigs coming from everywhere that came for the official opening, and certainly it was a great climax to my time as Mayor. Being Mayor of Temora Shire Council was something I never really envisaged would ever happen. Sort of always probably, I was a great advocate for my community at Narraburra Park, but I never really thought I had the confidence to take on being the Mayor, but the opportunity arose, and I took up the challenge, and once I got into the job, I realised that, yeah, I could handle it. So it was something that I really enjoyed at the time. On my farm in Narraburra Park, we were in severe drought at the time, and being Mayor probably allowed me to take my mind off the stresses of the drought on the farm. So I was able to think about other worries with the Shire and rather than my own worries at home. So, but I really enjoyed the time as Mayor. I met a lot of people and made a lot of new friends, and it certainly was a challenge to me, and probably lifted me up in as far as my abilities to do things.
I was Mayor from 1978 to 1980, and then Shire President from 1980 to 1985. The year 1980 was the biggest year ever, one of the biggest years in Temora's history. Temora Centenary, 1980, and that was celebrated in September, October, I think it was in the year. And the enforced amalgamation was 1980, and that was government legislation which forced the Narraburra Shire and Temora Municipal Council to amalgamate. And even though looking back it was a sensible thing to do, but at the time we thought it was a bit heavy-handed of the government to tell us what to do. If they had have said to us, look, sit down with the Narraburra Shire, work something out, we would have worked it out. So those two things by themselves were significant, but the disaster was in, I think it was January, late January, when the Sydney-Temora plane crashed at Mascot on its flight to Temora, and there was a council meeting in progress. The council was in committee, and there was a knock on the door. Went to the door. I mean, it was unusual to have committee interrupted, but I went to the door to see who were knocking and why, and I was taken outside and I was told that the plane had crashed. So I was faced with a decision of to think this through in about 10 or 15 seconds from the time I was told to the time I walked back to the chair, that I had to announce that this plane had crashed. There could have been councillors, aldermen, that stage it would have been, could have had family on that plane, and I had to think in 10 or 15 seconds how I was going to handle this situation. So I can remember going back to the chair, and I just stood up and said, look, I said, I have something terrible to announce and inform you of, that the Temora plane has crashed in Sydney on takeoff. if there's anybody here with family or friends or whatever, please, I can't handle it any other way other than just tell you. And anyhow, from then on it quickly became, we cancelled the meeting, we stopped the meeting because there were people on the plane that we all knew, and that is a night that will stick in my mind forever. But the 10 or 15 seconds that I had to come back and announce to these fellas what had happened, knowing that they could have had family or whatever on that plane, that was something that was, you don't want to go through. It was terrible. So those three things, you talk about memorable events in, everything else pales into insignificance. But the year 1980, with the centenary, the enforced amalgamation with the Narraburra Shire, and that plane crash, the year 1980 will be forever remembered. My hope for Temora, well, I hope it continues to be as good a place to live in as I have been lucky enough to live here for the last 75 years. And I think people who live in Temora, born in Temora, spend their life here, are among the luckiest people in the world. Natural growth, yes. I don't want, some people say, oh yes, we need this, we need more, we need that. It's a great place to live the way it is. There will be natural growth, but I don't want to see force-fed growth. I want it to be just natural growth that takes place in its own way. All right, and in conclusion, I'd just like to thank you all for putting up with me. It has been an honour to be involved in Temora and in some way, and to contribute. And thanks for putting up with me tonight, and I look forward to having a beer with you after the meeting's over. Thanks very much.
Well, I just remember very, very proudly in September of 2012 being elected as mayor after Peter Spiers, who was our longest serving mayor for some 20 years. He served this shire as our mayor so well, just like others before him. But certainly that was a huge honour, and something I won't forget. But it was also very daunting because we also have big shoes to fill with Peter Spiers, who's just an icon of local government and always will be. But in terms of achievements, I think it's always satisfying to be elected to council by your community, number one. That is a huge honour and means so much. But to be elected by your fellow councillors, to lead them and the staff and the community, I cannot begin to share how significant an honour that is. And I think we must always remember what a privilege it is to be a councillor, but also particularly to be a mayor. And every single day I wake up and feel a deep sense of pride and an honour to be in the role that I currently have. But in terms of achievements, I know that I don't think any one individual can particularly lay claim to achieving something on their own, because frankly we are a team. Council is a team, and that is your councillors, your staff and your community. So I think that the projects that I've really been proud of as a council and as a mayor, certainly the medical complex that we built. Council had a vision for several years. We needed to recruit more doctors. The doctors kept telling us we need new facilities. We need a new area to practice medicine. We want all the mod cons. So that was a consistent theme. So we worked hard as a council to ensure that we constructed a medical complex, and in November 2012 we officially opened it, and of course now we have some 11 doctors here in Temora Shire, and mission accomplished in that respect. And of course, more recently, we've just built some accommodation units as part of the medical precinct and a medical imaging. So that's the next stage of that project. So again, something that we are so very, very proud of. And I think the entire community is also pleased and proud of that achievement as well. So further to the medical precinct goal that we're very proud of, other things that we look at, such as the railway precinct upgrade. You know, that's fantastic. A railway museum that's up there that again is a further tourist attraction. We also have RV and caravan facilities there for people to utilise, but also a sound shell and an area for various concerts or performances and the like. It is a special facility, and I was very proud to have opened that in March of this year. And again, seeing how it seems to draw all people from all walks of life, all age groups, both from Temora Shire but also from everywhere else. So that's something that we're very, very proud of. Also privileged to open the Ambulance Museum located at the Bundawarra Centre. That was something very, very special that certainly Council supported, but it was also a dream of Mr. Eddie Sams, a former Citizen of the Year. That dream became a reality. So again, something else to draw people to this special community that we all hold so very dear. I think there's also other highlights as well. When we saw the opening of the heated therapy pool, that was something very special, and again, that was community driven by the entire community, and they come to council and said, look, we've raised, you know, some 300,000+. Can we make this a reality? And then council agreed, and then so we opened that. I opened that together with Mr. Peter Cartwright, who was the chairman of that steering committee, and council are very pleased how it seems to be so very successful, not only for those that need it in terms of their health and well-being requirements, but also for basic recreation for those enthusiasts that like to get out and in the cooler months or even the warmer months as well. So that's something else that's very special. But I must say that I do also really enjoy. I also enjoy getting out and about in as many community events as I can, and I love. I just love all things when communities come together for whatever occasion it may be. When I see people from all walks of life and all age groups, that pleases me very much. It may sound simplistic, but it certainly makes one feel very warm inside, and I think that's special in so many ways. But I also am very proud personally that I was elected as the Riverina Regional Group of Council's chairman, and that again is a significant honour as well for me personally. The fact that you've got your fellow mayors across the Riverina that believe that you're able to contribute in a leadership role, and I think that's also given me a great deal of enthusiasm and an extra pride as well in terms of my passion for local government. But the other thing as well is when the Minister for Local Government appointed me, surprisingly in my mind, to the Local Government Boundaries Commission. So that's a 5-year appointment. It's something I am very proud to be part of, and whilst it's presented its challenges, that's something that I was very proud of. And as a consequence of that involvement, I think the proudest moment of all in my 5 year, this is my 5th year as mayor, was when we won the Fit for the Future battle to remain a standalone council. And as I reflect along that, frankly, it was a 4-year journey. It was a journey that we wanted to embark on in terms of we wanted to strengthen the local government sector that we all hold so dear to us, but not to compromise Temora Shire and our autonomy. Now, we are one of the most successful councils in the state, and that is a plain fact. And those were facts, among others, that we advocated to the Minister for Local Government on several occasions, and the General Manager, Mr Lavelle, and I had many visits, and it was fantastic. But along that journey, having the 3 public meetings we had, and to have around 500 at the first one, 600 at the second one, and over 800 at the last meeting. And the Minister for Local Government told me himself he has never seen so many community members attend a public meeting to support their council. Now, that's something that makes me feel very proud to even reflect on, and it is an occasion that I will never forget, that our community believed in us, and they're the ones that gave us that extra strength to continue to fight to remain standalone. And so that is something that I have to say, whilst it was time consuming, it was very rewarding. And I must also reflect on our staff. That was very hard, I must admit. We have to be strong as a mayor for our councillors, for our families and community, but particularly for our staff and for their families. And I remember having several staff members and their wives coming in and talking to me, concerned and in tears on many occasions about what is the future, what they have mortgages, they have this, they have that. And that for me also cemented just how important it is for us to keep fighting. We fought hard, but we fought fairly. And but yeah, talking to the staff it was very difficult. But we kept saying to them, do not give up hope. We're doing all that we can and more to ensure that we stand alone. And I'm glad that we won the day in the end, and now we can't rest on the laurels. We've got to continue to work hard, and we will. But I always believe with a very strong elected body and dedicated staff and a supportive community, I don't think there's anything that we can't achieve. My hopes for future for Temora Shire is continuing growth in terms of our population, and particularly looking at ways that, and we're always doing this, but looking at ways that we can enhance employment across a diverse section of vocations. But I think that I want a place where all people feel that this is their home and that they want to contribute to it in some way. And I think that for us to be successful as we go down the trail, I think we need everybody to play their role and contribute, whether that be as an employee, as a businessman, or as a volunteer. All of those important roles are vital for our success for the future, but I think more than anything, we all need to have a deep belief in our own future and in each other.